Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bigin's Masterclass on sales and marketing strategies to crush this holiday season. I'm Annette Matthews, a product marketer with Bigin. Today, we have the pleasure of bringing together experts from sales and marketing to help you understand what works and what doesn't during this holiday season. You can also visit Bigin's website for additional resources. So, our format today is a panel discussion. So, we will be asking about 11 questions to the panelists, and this might take almost 45 minutes. After that, if you would like to ask any questions, we have a Q&A tab that is there at the top left corner of your screen. So you can just put in the questions there so that the experts will take some time towards the end of the session to answer them. Now, with that, I think we can introduce the experts. Nikki Elbus, she is a copywriter behind emails for Shopify Plus, Resident Home, for Sigmatic, and many more. She was the head of email at Copy Hackers Agency and has helped a lot of SaaS and e-commerce brands with their emails. And she is also dubbed as the Queen of Emails. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you.
Karen is the founder of Synchronicity Marketing, a company that is specializing in digital marketing training, coaching, and education. With over 2 decades of experience in data-driven digital marketing, she has contributed to digital marketing strategy and performance improvements for thousands of marketers from Google, Disney Consumer Products, City National Bank, and many more. Welcome, Karen, to this webinar.
Thank you so much.
And Joel is the director of sales at Zoho and has been in the sales industry for almost 15 years. He has educated many startups, SMBs, and also enterprise level businesses about the benefits of having control over sales using a CRM system. And he was one of the first few account managers to build Zoho's presence in the US sales marketing, discovering all US territories such as the Central, Mountain, Pacific, and Eastern territories. Hi, Joel. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We are so excited to have you all here today. So why don't we jump on to the questions right away? So my first question will be to you, Nikki. So it is actually very well known that holidays are the most crucial time for many businesses. And the landscape, however, seems to change from year to year. So in your perspective, what is the one major shift in consumer behavior that businesses should pay attention to?
Okay, so I know you said one shift, but I have 3.
Please go ahead.
The reason I chose 3 is because I feel like this year is such a unique year. It's very different than, again, like you said, every year is unique, but this year has some extra unique things. So the first thing is relevant only for companies working with US audiences. But the number one thing is for them is that election season is starting. It already started, but typically will begin, Black Friday pre-sales and things like that in the beginning of November. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how people are going to be feeling. We don't know what they're emotionally going to be like. We don't know how they're going to be feeling about the economy based on all the election results. So that's just one interesting shift that luckily is solved by number 2. The fact that Thanksgiving this year and Black Friday this year are so late in November means that we still have a really nice buffer from after election season to holiday season. So whereas we kind of missed that beginning of November, we do still get enough weeks to give the pre-sales and things like that because because Thanksgiving is so late. It's still a shorter holiday season from Thanksgiving till Christmas, New Year's, but it still works because you could still do the pre-sales and you could work things out. So that's just something to keep in mind, though, that if people are really focusing on like the gifting and those sort of campaigns, you do have to just shift the way you're scheduling things a little bit. So that's number 2. And then number 3, what's number 3? Oh, just the economy in general. It's not great right now. People are not excited about it. So that's just something that's going to be affecting things.
Cool. So as a follow-up, how do you think brands can adapt to these changes to engage to their audience better?
So like I mentioned already, sorry, with the shorter the elections and the longer November, that kind of solves itself. In terms of the economy, what's interesting is that there have been studies that show that it's not that people stop spending when they're worried about the economy. They just spend differently. They spend on smaller luxuries instead of on bigger luxuries. So, bundling things, upsells, just trying to like improve your AOV instead of, selling those higher ticket items, instead just trying to how about this extra item for yourself, this little luxury buy-in kind of thing. You're buying a gift for them. How about, treat yourself? Smaller things bundled together could be a great solve that people will still be spending. They're just tapping into the way they're spending differently when they're worried about the economy.
And in the light of this shift, Karen, my next question is to you. So what marketing channels do you think will be most effective for reaching customers this year? And are there any newer or lesser used channels that could make a difference for this shift?
Well, we're still going to see heavy use of email. That is very much the workhorse, if you will, of digital marketing, tried and true. But I think we're going to see an even greater rise in the dual effort of SMS and email. And just over the last, couple of years, especially since the pandemic, we've seen such a huge uptick in the acquisition of mobile numbers and the opt-in requests, for SMS. And so it really is like a 1-2 punch for many marketers to reinforce their email campaigns with SMS messaging and campaigns. But they're doing it a little differently. They're doing SMS, I should say, differently than email because it's much more expensive. So there should be an effort made to segment the best customers, probably on buying behavior more than anything else. And they're going to get some exclusive offers in one channel that might not show up, say, in that primary channel of email. And then I think the other thing that's really underutilized and we're going to see more of, and I'm seeing some brands stepping up their efforts here, is mobile push. So for any brand that has a mobile app, they're going to be sending more notifications. They're probably going to be doing some flash sales, some limited time offers, limited inventory offers. We've seen some of those strategies done in previous years for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and holiday. But I hope this is an encouragement and inspiring to some of you out there. Think this through ahead of time, because Nikki made these amazing points about timing this year that we do have in the US, later Thanksgiving holiday, which is usually the kickoff for a lot of these. We've got a big, chunk of time between the US presidential election and Black Friday. So think about, a stratified tiered offer strategy. Think about when you want revenue goals to be met. You're going to push it all earlier. Are you underselling in certain categories? Are you afraid you're going to run out? What products can you bundle? All of that plays into, which offers go to which audiences in which channel. So yeah, to wrap it up, email definitely still going to, we're going to see flooded inboxes, but where brands also have the opt-in and the data to send a text message, I think a lot more of that's going to be happening, and it's going to have a lot more parameters around it. And then if there's an app, mobile push is probably going to see the spotlight this year, maybe for like the first real time.
So Karen, is it just that they can send SMS or emails to people only when these particular events happen, or do you think it can be a bit more consistent? So in order to maintain the brand identity, do you think all these can be a bit more consistent than just getting and telling them about all these offers or stuff like that at that particular point only?
The brands that have really embraced SMS are already pretty consistent with it. So if you're out there and you're thinking of starting an SMS campaign, or you're thinking of ramping up that channel, unless you've already got your plans locked down, rock solid, from now through the end of this calendar year, don't try to roll it out just yet. This is a really busy period. You're going to probably be lost. It's very noisy during holiday. You might be lost in the shuffle. Wait till January. But yeah, if you're already up and running with SMS as a channel, it's paying off for you. Now's the time to think about, how do I create more unique customer segments? How do I create unique offers for these different segments? And who gets what during holiday? Because like I said, SMS is a more expensive channel. So use it wisely to get it to pay off.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Joel, the next question is for you. From a sales perspective, what do you think is the key to turn holiday traffic into actual conversions? And what role do you see marketing playing in supporting the sales process?
So I think the ability to be agile is one of the main things, because as it was pointed out earlier, these are unprecedented times. Each year comes with its own set of challenges, but this year is uniquely different than those previous. So being agile allows us the ability to navigate those waters and kind of meet the customers where they're at, because each of the customers are going to have a specific set of needs or a specific set of pain points that we need to be able to identify and then speak directly to those, rather than placing a blanket over everyone's problems, thinking they can all be solved in the same manner. Now, where marketing comes in, and historically, sales and marketing working together is a bit of a Tom and Jerry play, if you will, right? There's harmonious times, and there's times where, you're trying to trap each other in the trap. So the ability just to align goals is what helps the relationship between marketing and sales. So marketing has many different functions. There's brand awareness, there's lead gen, and sales is really straightforward, bring in the revenue for the organization, right? But when we can align those two ideals to be more in tune, it helps with the relationship between sales and marketing, because we are striving for a single goal rather than the goal of marketing and then the goal of sales. It has been done. I know it has a good success rate when it's done properly, but just historically, the sales and marketing Tom and Jerry play still exists. But I think we've come a long way in being able to merge those two departments together.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip, Joel. It's just the end target that we need to focus, whether it's sales or marketing. That's valuable insight. Maybe as a follow-up question, Joel, can you share any examples where you've seen the best synergy between marketing and sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the Zoho side, we conduct a series of events. We'll travel to local areas where we have a good conglomerate of customers. And we do this jointly with the marketing team. Now, it is a lead gen event, but obviously with the way that marketing is done on a broad scale, sometimes you get customers that trickle in that are existing customers, and obviously there's no lead gen there. But with sales being able to accompany the marketing team to said events, we can capture both sides of the equation, right? Both the questions and answers for new customers, and still the questions that exist for existing customers that have been with Zoho for some time. Now, it's not an easy task to do, right? I know marketing has a lot on their shoulders because they're being pulled in so many different directions. And sales suffers from similar problems as well. But again, that synergy and that ability to kind of align your goals is what helps make those very successful.
Thank you, Joel. So before we move on to the next question, I would like to remind the participants that there is a Q&A tab that is there at the top left corner of your screen. So if you have any questions about what we are discussing right now, please feel free to put them in the box, the Q&A box. The experts will be answering them towards the end of this session. I think we can move on to the strategy part of things. Nikki, how should businesses ensure that the messaging resonates with holiday spirit while still promoting their product or service?
So I actually don't think it needs to, for two reasons. It should in some cases, but in some cases, either where you need to be culturally sensitive because they have a vast audience that is celebrating different kinds of holidays or doesn't like the holidays, or, catering to those sensitivities. That could be a case where we want to steer away from holiday messaging. And then some brands just don't, they just don't lean into the more punny, fun, that sort of personalized messaging. So in those cases, it might not fit the brand either. In cases where it does work, because for most brands it does work, and you can do it in a sensitive way across all industries and audiences and all that. The easiest way is with imagery. So just, changing the imagery, changing your colors, not changing, you're still keeping your brand colors, but tapping into the imagery. I mean, it's just like an instant, a picture says a thousand words. It's an instant fuzzy feeling. It just works. But then as well, there's so many opportunities to lean into, the puns of the times, and just, it's a celebratory feel, which is why we want to lean into it, because it gets people into an emotional space that is positive. So we're always thinking about emotion when we're trying to sell to people and getting them to take action. So that's the real why we're doing it. It's not just we're time sensitive. We understand the times. It's really that the why behind it is that we want to get people into this mode of feeling generous, happy, celebratory. So any positive messaging, any holiday spirit, that sort of thing just works very, very nicely.
Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, I think it's a great reminder to keep the spirit of the season in mind while doing all these campaigns as well. So moving on to the sales part, Joel, when the marketing campaigns are live, the sales team actually needs to convert those leads. And what will be your advice for the sales team on closing more deals during this holiday time?
My recommendation would just be to meet the customer where they're at. Again, it was spoken previously about the economic times and how people are spending differently, and companies that offer various subscription services, i.e. annual versus monthly, semi-annual, that's giving them the ability to be flexible and meeting the customer where they're at. Because if budgetary constraints are confining them to have to subscribe to certain vendors or services on a month-to-month basis, whereas previously and historically it's more on an annual subscription basis, this allows customers to feel more confident in their buying decision, because they know it's not a long-term commitment, especially with unforeseeable things that may be awaiting us, down the road. It does provide a sense of comfort and a level of trust in the organization that they're willing to accommodate in that manner.
So thank you, Joel, for that. I think practical tips like this actually make a big difference when it comes to sales. And as a follow-up question, so once the holiday season wraps up, how do you think the sales team should evaluate the performance of the campaigns? I mean, what key metrics do you think they should focus in order to determine the success of their efforts?
I think it's important to be cautious of how you pull metrics during this particular season, because there will be some anomalies, as there will be concessions that are made due to end of quarter. The end of my budgetary fiscal year is coming, so I need to disperse these funds, otherwise I lose it. So these things will pop up, and while we benefit from these, it's not something that you can necessarily hang your hat on to plan for the next year, right? Because the next year we don't know yet, because it has yet to happen. So it's important to keep these things in mind as you're looking at reports and you're looking at data points, to understand where the anomalies come in versus what the more systematic or concrete data that we can pinpoint to build onto the plan of the following year. In terms of things that I think the holiday season will provide us is insight into how spending will be handled the following year, because I personally believe it's a glimpse into that. Because while we're going on the tail end, and although we have election that's coming up, by the end of the year, turn of the new year, I think the dust would have settled enough to where we can start paying attention to some of the trends that we're starting to see towards the latter part of the year. and into the new year. So those are the things that I would pinpoint to keep an eye on.
Got it. Thank you, Joel. And my next question will obviously be to Karen. We already discussed that there is an unpredictability when it comes to holiday marketing, and we don't know what comes. So could you share with us some common challenges that you've seen brands facing while doing their holiday campaigns, and how do you think they can overcome these challenges?
Sure. And I know we're kind of talking a little bit about both B2B and B2C. So my comments are going to be geared a little bit more toward business to consumer marketing and consumer brands, selling online, and they're trying to make their revenue numbers, especially their e-commerce numbers during this season. It's make or break, that's why it's called Black Friday, because if they meet the goals, it'll put them in the black as far as, profitability. The challenges can be everything from website capacity and systems capacity to inventory availability. So on that first one, if you've got a really good offer and a really active audience and they're waiting for the best deals to happen around this time of year, check whether or not, your payment system, your whether you're using like Shopify or Magento or WooCommerce on the back end, can it handle the traffic you're going to get? What's your network capacity? Are you, sure that you can fulfill on time? What about shipping capacity? All of that plays into some of the challenges that marketers face. And those might be a little bit more operational and a little bit more e-commerce versus marketing related. But the last thing you want is the high quality problem of your marketing, hitting a home run, knocking it out of the park, and your infrastructure can't handle it. The second thing is, do you have the inventory? So if you're promoting specific products, bundles of products, sometimes there's holiday exclusives, certain products that are only created at this time of year or available this time of year. Do you actually have enough to, be able to fulfill all the orders? And if you're creating some scarcity, then indicate to people that, we only have so many, limited inventory. If it sells out, it's gone. And if it does sell out, then the strategy should be, what are we going to offer instead? What is next, in our lineup to promote to people, when our most popular products, top sellers, whatever they might be, are gone. So these are some of the things that are just not anticipated enough ahead of time. I think another kind of problem on the opposite side of the scale is the marketing isn't working as it's not creating as much demand as you'd like. So now how do you create more urgency and demand, right? And that's where you have tiered offers, you have step up or step down discounts in place, you have flash sales come in. So, if you have, like I said, the high quality problem of you're selling out of things, your offers are working great, your audience is super responsive, you might have operational issues. If you have the problem where the offers and the incentives aren't working great, and like our other, panelists have said, Joel and Nikki said, people might be willing to spend, but they're not going to spend the same way. They still want the deals. They still want the best price of the year, but you might need to package and productize a little differently. The wrapping of how you merchandise what you have, even on the site, might need to be a little different to get them over the finish line, pull the trigger and open their wallets. And again, that's where we lean more heavily on marketing to do the job of creating the urgency, communicating deadlines, communicating limited inventory, bundling products in different ways, and having, step up or step down discount strategies.
Thank you, Karen. I think identifying the challenges is the first step in overcoming those. So yeah, those points were really insightful. Now, as a wrap-up question, this is for all the three of you. So what will be your one top advice for businesses looking to make the best out of their holiday season. Let's start with you, Nikki, followed by Joel and then Karen.
Okay. My number one, always, anytime anyone's like, okay, what's the number one holiday tip? It's always to think about after the holidays, because generally you're spending a lot to get new leads, to get new customers, and then there's so much effort put into it. You're planning your campaigns, you're staying up all night, making sure everything is working right, and then nothing. So it's very, very, very important to keep nurturing these new customers, to retain them and to get them to continue buying. We all know LTV, lifetime customer value is like the metric when you're acquiring new customers. So just, Karen mentioned SMS. Once you have that channel in place, giving replenishment texts is such a winner. It works so well, especially if you're doing two-way or really using the personalization data, what they already bought, and you're timing it perfectly to when they could replenish, or an upsell to something that works really well with what they bought. Those kinds of things work beautifully and really just continue to nurture that relationship. On the operational side, if you are having operational issues, then communication becomes hugely important, where you can, say like, oh, sorry that it didn't come in time. Here's what we're doing about it instead, or here's the problems we were having, so that, you're basically just keeping in mind the customer relationship and not just focusing on the holiday sales and the budget and whatever is happening. If there are problems, fixing them. And if they are great and they're super happy, then continuing that relationship and getting them to, purchase and continue or refer you, or just continuing that relationship, thinking about the customer journey versus just that one sale.
I think Joel.
Yeah, my turn. Even though Nikki took one of my points. No, I'm just kidding. For me, one of the biggest takeaways would be communication, right? Because that saying goes, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And while all of the communication is geared towards the holiday season, and again, leaning into the sensitivity aspect of, who celebrates what, and some may not even acknowledge certain holidays, we have to be aware that the communication allows us the opportunity to continue the conversation beyond the holiday season. Because once that communication goes out, you're pretty much setting the precedence for how communication thereafter is going to be expected to be continued. So for me, it's just allowing yourself the ability to have a continuation with the communication beyond the holiday season, because holidays are only for a short time, right? They're called seasons for a reason. So giving us the freedom to be able to continue communication and contact beyond that is super duper important.
Thank you, Joel. Karen, your turn.
Thank you. And Nikki, yeah, you absolutely hit the nail on the head with think about what comes next. So I totally agree, but to give something different, I'm going to give a really tactical recommendation. And this is my number one. And that is get your data and list house in order. And what I mean by that is, we have these huge customer files, and we have email subscriber files that might include people beyond customers. They're prospects, or they just signed up for email and SMS off the website, but they haven't bought anything yet. Please segment, stratify them, and clean those contacts. What a lot of companies will do before holiday is they'll do an email list hygiene process, and there are many great vendors out there. I'm not going to toss out any particular names, but they can see if the email address is still valid. They could, and then you can see, hey, what's the open rate? What's the open frequency and the click frequency on some of these email addresses I've been gathering? Are some of them growing cold and getting stale? And if so, I might want to segment them out and not include them in my holiday marketing, because there's so much traffic in inboxes and ISPs are so overwhelmed. You don't want to ding your chances at deliverability. By the same token, you want to look at who your best customers are, right? And we do this by analyzing purchase data, looking at, number of purchases, recency, the dollar amounts, There's well-known analyses in that area that can be done because we want to reward the best customers, but then we want to look at the ones who are really engaged with our channels of communication, whether email, SMS, or both, and incentivize them, and maybe give them a different treatment that's going to get them over that point of just always watching and thinking about buying and actually buying. So there's so much work we can do with our data, with our list. The first step is, clean it up. The second step is segment it by engagement level, customers versus prospects, and then prospects by who's really active, who's paying attention, and who's not. And then the third step is decide, who's worthy of getting your holiday messages and promotions, because you maybe start out with a really wide audience and start to narrow it down, or for some of your best offers, maybe you only send to the most engaged, but you still have enough touches that are reaching anyone, that those folks who are kind of on the fringes, who signed up for email like last March and they still haven't bought anything, well, your offers might be so good during holiday that they're finally going to purchase. And then that goes directly to what Nikki and Joel said, which is figure out a strategy for keeping them engaged on a go-forward basis, especially into the new year. Things get really quiet in January, but you could get some visibility and make a little noise by having a really good Q1, kind of like start of the year re-engagement strategy. And that might be using a little bit of content marketing rather than just more discounts, because they've already spent, they've already run through their discretionary spending, very likely in holiday. But in the beginning of the year is an opportunity to get them thinking forward and allowing them to get to know who you are better if they're brand new.
Thank you, Karen. I think we have a few questions in the Q&A tab. So before we go on to the questions, for people who are not familiar with the tools from Zoho, there is something called Bigin by Zoho CRM, which is a customer relationship management software, which launched only in 2020. So if you're yet to try it out, you can try it out for your sales related activities. And we also have something called Zoho Campaigns, which is our email marketing software, which can be integrated with SMS as well, since Karen has been talking about the importance of SMS. So if you would like to give it a try, I'll be putting in the links to both the products in the chat. So after the webinar, you could probably take a look at it. And I'll also be sharing a recording of this session to all of you along with these links. So yeah, I think we can get into the questions now. Thank you everyone for your questions. And thank you to our experts, Nikki, Joel, and Karen, for joining us today. It was a really insightful session. Thank you so much. And to all the attendees, we really hope you found this masterclass helpful and inspiring. Have a wonderful holiday season ahead. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.